This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Clyde Wright, a.k.a. Skeeter, was a left-handed pitcher for 10 seasons, most of them with the L.A. Angels. He went on to open a pitching school for kids and now shares his baseball wisdom in a book he wrote with his son Jarrett entitled Baseball the Right Way, as in W-R-I-G-H-T. So what are you up to at the moment, Clyde?
I still work for the L.A. Angels of Anaheim. I do a lot of the community service, charity work, and stuff like that. I've been around the Angels since 1966, and I've taken a year here and a year there, and I played 2.5 years in Japan. So this has always been my home in Anaheim, California. I made a living playing baseball.
Not many people can say that.
Isn't that something? About 1 out of 100.
So you guys got together with your family and wrote Baseball the Right Way, which is a play on your last name.
Right. That was me and my son and my wife. She was a big part of it. It's about the difference in the generations, like 30 years apart when I played, and it was another 30 years before my son, played. So it was kind of the difference, in the eras that I played and he played. And it was the stories that I had when I played, what we could do and stuff, and the difference in what he could do, when he started playing 30 years later. He played 10 years in the big leagues. I kid him all the time that I had all the fun and he made all the money.
Yeah, because baseball players, you guys didn't get paid that much in the 60s, right?
No, but, we made enough money to live on and stuff, but it was nowhere near, the economy today for baseball players. It's just like when I was a kid growing up in Tennessee, a Coke was like a nickel.
Yeah.
Now you go buy a Coke, it's $2 or $3. Everything has changed.
You won 100 games. You tossed a no-hitter. You made the All-Star team. You played alongside Hall of Famers. And then you spent 3 years in Japan, and then you opened a school training kids who would like to be pitchers in the major league.
Right. I ran a pitching school for 30 years here in Anaheim.
Wow.
And at one time, there was about 18 or 20 kids that were playing in the big leagues that had been to my pitching school. Now, all of them didn't turn out to be pitchers. Some of them played different positions, right? But at one time, I had 20 students that were playing professional baseball. But the other thing about my school is everybody wanted to get to college to where their parents wouldn't have to pay for it, right? They wanted to go to college on a scholarship. And they would, some of the kids would tell me, well, I want to go to Cal State Fullerton, or I want to go to USC or UCLA. And I would just tell them, there's no way that you can pitch at one of these schools, because those big schools recruit the best players in the nation. And I would try to find them a place to where I thought they could play and develop and get better. And a few of them went, junior colleges, then went on to Division I school. And I think I helped, it was like about 250 kids get scholarships to go to college, one way or the other.
I'm assuming, unlike, I would say, a majority of authors, you don't have a problem with people showing up to book signings and stuff, huh?
Well, I do a lot of speaking engagements and stuff, and everybody's getting now that I have the book, me and my son have the book. It's like last night, the Booster Club for the L.A. Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah.
I go speak to them once a year. And, when they found out I was going to come and talk to them, they said, bring your book. So it's like we had maybe 40 people there last night. And I think I So, like, I think it was 15 or 16 books,
Nice. Good for
you know.
you.
Yeah. So I just have a good time with it.
Well, Clyde, thank you so much for talking to me. You have a great
You're
day.
welcome.
All right.
Hey, anytime you want to pick up the phone and talk a little baseball, just give me a call.
All right, Clyde, you got it, man. I'll see you
Oh,
later.
okay.
Paul Trinkle is a musician songwriter in Southern California. He started writing songs and music in the mid 80s. Writing a book was a whole different story. It's called The Man with Pigeons on His Feet.
Oh, Alice, it was great. It was I was actually writing lyric to a song, and I was trying to rhyme to the word bittersweet. And all of a sudden, out blurbs, and the man with pigeons on his feet. And I just started cracking up because nothing to do with the song at all. So it wouldn't leave me. I just kept on thinking about it and laughing, and I thought, you know what, that's kind of funny. I might be able to maybe make a book out of that. So I started doing some rhyming with that, and lo and behold, an hour later, I had this book done.
An hour later?
Yeah, it's a rhyming children's book.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking, oh, the man with pigeons on his feet. I go, oh, that's kind of funny. These pigeons could just be hanging out on this guy's feet, you know, and they're not tied down or anything, so they could leave at will or anything like that. And but they want to hang out with him. And so I started just thinking, oh yeah, he could mow the lawn, they could walk the dog, you know, they could do stuff like that. And I couldn't figure out where I wanted to go with it. And then I just went, oh my gosh, I kind of thought they could go through the seasons of the year, you know, so they could be Halloween and I could dress them up, and they could go to Christmas and go shopping and see Santa, and, you know, it just fell into place. So it was really fun. Just a nonsensical, whimsical story through the seasons. So there's not a ending per se. I do actually have 2 other pigeon books in line to get going on. It's basically narrated by a little boy, and he notices the man across the street, and he wants to meet him, and then he just talks about what they do through the year. So it's just kind of fun, and just goes through the seasons, and we go through summer, and they go fishing, and they Thanksgiving, and they eat tofurkey because they can't eat turkey, of course, because that'd be cannibalistic for them. So they watch football, Easter. They dress up like Easter bunnies. And
Do you have little kids that you can like try this book out on?
I have so many neighbor kids, and I have just so tons of these things. I'm trying to get into the public library right now. I did get a real good review off the Kirkus. I was able to attach that and try to get it into my Orange County public libraries right now. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So I have a couple small bookstores in my local area that are carrying it.
So it's taken flight.
It has. It's my illustrator is a semi-retired teacher. So she thought it would be a great idea to put some educational pages at the end. So we did. So that was really nice. So I think hard section where they could reference things in the book. We have them go back into the book to try to find things. And then we have a imagination page also where we just throw out some things for them to imagine. Lots of teachers have loved that idea. And I'd love to get into the schools and into the library. That's kind of like my main goal.
Do you get a little pigeon when you buy the book? Do you have like little stuffed pigeons?
Oh my God! You know what? You're so smart. I don't, but I would love to market pigeon slippers. Man, it would be perfect, right? I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody could have pigeons on their feet then.
That's right. Ken Packman is a dentist outside of Philadelphia with a penchant for suspense. Thrillers, think Tom Clancy. His journey to become an author has been challenging, but he continues to forge ahead with his book entitled Point of Refuge.
Well, I always enjoyed writing, and people always complimented me on my writing. And so I said, I really want to write a book. And so around the year 2000, I started my first novel. Took me a couple years. Got an agent, finally got it published. And I just continued on. I just hooked up with Paige not that long ago.
Yeah.
Gotten great reviews from people. If I showed you all my rejection letters from publishers, they were all glowing. They just did not want to take a chance on an unknown author.
Right.
So that's why I went with Paige. Paige did a great job. This is my second novel. I've always been interested in, crime and law enforcement and the military, spy stuff. And originally, I was a big fan of Ian Fleming with the original
Oh.
James Bond. I'm also a very big fan of Lee Child and the Reacher series, and John Sanford, the Prey series.
So all of
Yeah.
this feeds into that wild imagination of yours, and
Yes.
you come up
Yes, it does.
with James LaForte.
Yes. James LaForte is a ex-SAS operator, Special Air Service of the British Special Forces. And he was a sniper and was deployed several times. He then hooked up with MI6, which is the British equivalent to our CIA. He was involved with an American CIA agent, Susan Nakamura, and the other player in this was a guy by the name of Jack Dillon, who was as also worked for the CIA. Turns out that the guys running this operation were doing it for their own personal gain. They were, killing terrorists, stealing their money under the guise of counterterrorism. One of their operations goes very bad, and Jack Dillon is captured by the Chinese. When they finally try to catch him, Nakamura is killed in an explosion. LaForte survives. They don't know where Jack Dillon is. So LaForte becomes a British military policeman for a couple years, and then decides to go and settle in the United States. Now, the backstory for that is his uncle had been in the United States for 30 years and was an actual sheriff in North Dakota. So LaForte, as a kid, used to come over to the United States every summer and spend time with the uncle. He finally comes over here, the governor of the state of North Dakota. They love him. The uncle dies, and he becomes the sheriff in North Dakota.
Oh.
So that's sort of the backstory of what happens. Turns out that Jack Dillon, the sniper, is not dead, and he's hell-bent on revenge. And so with some criminal elements in North Dakota, they contact some jihadists, and Jack Dillon gets hold of a suitcase nuclear device, which he plans to detonate in downtown Bismarck. And that's the story.
Whoa.
And then
Okay, so now there's a race against time. We have to stop him from detonating this. Yeah.
Right.
Any unique plans? Like, is there a copy in your dentist office?
Of course.
What you're doing when I have my mouth open and you're looking in and you're poking around, you're really developing plot lines for your next book. That's what I think's going on here, Ken.
When I told people I wrote my first novel, I said, well, is it about dentistry? I said, no. Dentistry is what I do when I'm at my office. When I leave my office, I leave the dentistry behind. So I don't really get a lot of inspiration and patience. As an author, you're always on the lookout for things that are a little bit unusual.
J.J. Johns was bullied as a child, and she is determined to save kids from suffering the same fate with her book entitled My Skin and Me.
My Skin and Me is an anti-bullying book, which is the message is to teach children to love themselves, no matter their disabilities or whatever their forms of disabilities may be. So it's focused on loving themselves. I went through extreme bullying as a child, and so I'm hoping to reach someone going through my past situation currently, and hopefully it'll inspire them to, instead of committing suicide, with the amount of suicide that's taken place in teens and children now, I don't think it's fully addressed. And so I'm hoping to reach those children before they reach that point. I think if we look at what the suicide rate is currently with teens and young children now, along with when I was a child, the amount of bullying that I went through, how did it affect me? Personally, it affected me in ways that I had an outlet. I had a mother that taught me to love myself. So that's where the inspiration of this book came from. But there are a lot of people that didn't have that, and they did take their own lives in those instances. So hopefully those people are the people that I'm trying to reach. When you open the book, you'll find my story, which is what I went through. I was bullied because I was too Black. And having an understanding of I wasn't too Black. I just needed to know that I can see myself in the world in any way. This book was a thing to my peers because I was bullied by males in my class and I was bullied by females in my class. And so I really didn't have many Caucasian people in my class during that time. And there was like two brothers that were of a different nationality that I learned later on in their culture. You know, abusing women is acceptable, but at that time as a child being called a black nigger bitch, you don't have that understanding, you know?
So in your book, you take us through the life of this little child and this little girl who happens to be you. And then at the end, how does she get through it?
At the end of the book, she has the inspiration from her mom and just looking throughout the world and seeing herself. Her mom was able to teach her how to love herself.
So how are you getting this message out?
At this current time, I'm using every platform I can. I utilize local platforms, local radio stations. I also have Twitter, which I can be reached at Twitter, and it is promoted there readily. And I have my AM show, which is A World of Joy podcast on Spotify. And I have been reaching out to local schools, and I'm hoping to reach out to more organizations and schools to be able to really deal with the problem and prevent suicide from bullying.
All right, JJ, thank you. It is break time on the Page Publishing Book Club. Stay with us.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Colin Brown runs a taxi company and counsels couples in Abilene, Texas. Married with 4 kids, he says family is everything and lays out how to get through the good times and bad in his book entitled The 4 Seasons of the Family.
I've always been very family oriented. You know, I like to assess life, and I can see the family going through different transitions. And so I see where, you know, like the onset of the family, the onset of the relationship, it is like spring. And spring is something new, a new beginning, a new romance, you know, something to look forward to. And so I figure that as it blooms, you know, it becomes very hot and steamy. And that is where the summer part comes in. And then as it transitions, you know, you get to a point in your life or in a relationship, right, that you have to make a decision. Do we go forward, right, or do we fall back? And that is where the fall comes in. And then the separation process or the death, I look at that as a winter, when things become very gloom, very dull, right? The loss of a loved one, you know, it's synonymous to winter, you know, almost like there's no hope. You've lost the best thing. And then once that is ended, then sometimes it ends in total death of the both person, or it can also go back into the next phase of your life, which is another spring. When I look and I realize what is going on in marriages and families, you know, it really perturbed me because I believe strongly in the family, because the family is the core of society. It is the backbone, the foundation. And many persons enter into marriages or relationships ill-advised. Some of them enter in not sure where they are, what phase they are at. And so if you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going. And so, you know, this book came in, you know, that I can help persons to understand exactly where they are in their relationship and in their life. And so therefore, I can help them to transition to the next phase.
Do you counsel a lot of couples?
Yes, I do. The biggest problem is that I see in marriages and relationships is that persons do not take time to study each other. And because of that, they have not learned how to compromise. They figure that condescension, right, is what is going to solve the problem, right? And so you condescend, I'm giving up. You don't have to give up everything. You meet each other halfway. If I understand my partner, then my partner automatically, I'm expecting that the person is going to understand me as well. If we take time to study each other, then I'm going to know what you like. And in knowing what you like, I'm going to help to please you. Because even the Bible says that we learn to please each other. It's not just about self-pleasing, it's about pleasing each other. And so persons do not take that time. It's all about me, that me mentality. I want what I want, and I want it now. But we're not thinking, what does the other person want? Because they enter into a relationship, to get something and also to give something. And so we have to meet each other halfway. But the only way we can meet each other halfway is by understanding each person and also studying yourself and imparting some of what you have and what you know to the other person, not forcefully, right? But you impart it to the person, so it must be a business transaction, a give and take, an offer and an acceptance.
So true, Colin. Thank you. G.K. Frost works at a finance company in Missouri. It was her fifth grade teacher who encouraged her to write, but it wasn't until she says God revealed himself to her through pictures that she started taking notes. And it's all in her book entitled Imperfect Images. Now, why are these two words spelled with an E?
It's actually misspelled on purpose. Because my theory is if we had a perfect image of God, our brains would blow up.
So it would be imperfect.
Right. And you cannot read it like it's not a chapter, a story kind of book. You can pick up anywhere in the book and start reading because they're parables. They're short, small little stories about what I've learned.
Can you give me an example? Do you have a short one you can share with me?
I would love to read for you the one that I first read to Page Publishing when they called us back the first time. It's called A Token of Love. It's the end of January already. I can't believe it has passed so quickly. Trash day has rolled around yet again. I noted on my way to the car in the dark of the early morning a box of random trash in front of our apartment building. A cheap plastic bright red heart container on the top of one of the trash cans. Empty, it bounced up and down in the gentle breeze. Someone in my building got an early token of love, I thought. Valentine's Day's gifts had already covered the shelves in all the local stores. The gift was mass-produced, one of thousands, maybe billions. So cheaply made, it was the thought that would need to count this time. I could afford something like this even on my oh-so-tight budget. It began to snow on my way to work, so that by the time I came home, the whole world was nothing but white. All the dirt, mud, and trash were covered in a thick blanket of sun-reflecting glare. The trash men had already been down my street, and I thought nothing more about that heart-shaped box until the other day. The snow everywhere was no longer white, beautiful, and clean. Random piles of gray, muddy-looking slush lay around in yards by sidewalks, steps, and driveways. I saw a piece of cheap red plastic by the curb. I thought about that one token of love, and I smiled a lonely smile. It rained off and on for several days, and the muddy piles of snow disappeared. I saw under a pile of wet, dead leaves a flattened, red plastic, sort of heart-shaped thing. I thought about that token of love, how sad it was that it was smashed in just a memory. I carried that memory with me for almost 2 weeks. A picture of love, a token of thoughtfulness, practically smashed beyond recognition. But I didn't see that cheap red plastic container again until today, nearly 1 whole month after I first saw it. It has been washed into the gutter halfway down the street. Suddenly, the picture of Jesus' body, having just been taken down from the cross, came to my mind. His body, broken, beaten, and doubtless beyond recognition, was God's token of love. He was not cheap. not plastic, not one of billions of ordinary people that filled the world. So many people pass by the ultimate token of love as if he was some cheap plastic red container thrown away to forget. Jesus asked, "How much do you love me?" I reached out my hands as far as they would go, and I said, "This much." He smiled and said, "And I love you this much." And he stretched out his arms as far as they could go, and he died. Philippians 2:18. For being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
That's really nice. So that's what we find in your book.
Yes, stuff like that.
Something to think about as we wrap up another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. If you missed anything or you just want to binge on previous episodes of the PPBC, go to 710WOR.com. Download the podcast. In the meantime, shouldn't you be writing? We had some really great inspiration here, don't you think? Okay, we all can't be professional baseball players who go on to start successful pitching schools for kids, but one thing is for sure. Everybody has a story, including you. Catch you next time. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.